Have you ever seen a nuclear reactor and have been scared of it? Well, you're not alone. According to The Guardian, June 23rd, 2012, 62% of citizens in 24 different countries across the globe oppose the use of nuclear energy and see it as unsafe and not environmentally friendly. Well, this is just not the case. Nuclear power is one of the cleanest, safest, and most efficient power sources we have. With zero emissions, and in some cases it is beneficial to local ecosystems. But with popular disapproval, lack of funding, aging infrastructure, and high competition from cheap fossil fuels, nuclear power plants are rapidly shutting down. We need to do something to save this marvel of technology in order to protect the environment and further develop this amazing power source. Today, I will share with you the problems, causes, and solutions associated with the decline in nuclear power. First, let's take a look at the problem. Nuclear power plants have been shutting down at an alarming rate in the past years. This is a very big problem we are facing because nuclear power plants in the United States haven't been built since the 1970s. So with them shutting down at this alarming rate, we are simply losing them without gaining any new ones like other countries. According to the congressional documents and publications, August 31st, 2020, as recent as 2013, the US had 104 operational domestic nuclear power reactors. Today, there are only 95, and about 1/3 of them are facing economic hardships. This is explaining how in just 7 years, we have lost almost 10 nuclear power plants, and 1/3 of those 95 that are left are on the brink of closing down because they can't afford to stay open. Although some of the gaps left by these nuclear power plants that are shutting down are being taken over by clean sources such as solar and wind power, we still get 70% of our power from fossil fuels, which are extremely damaging to our health and to the environment. According to The Independent, March 31st, 2020, fossil fuels have cigarette-style warnings, health experts say. Now, they are proposing putting warnings like we see in the cigarette labels for cancer to put them in fossil fuel products in order to make people aware of just how dangerous they can be to our health. And they're not just dangerous to our health, they're also dangerous to animals, to plants, and to our entire planet. According to Policy and Politics, August 2008, the combustion of fossil fuels is measurably harming the world's climate, threatening species in low-lying island nations and facilitating the spread of diseases such as malaria. Now, this article is talking about how damaging the burning of fossil fuels is for our world, for our health, and for local ecosystems, especially those in secluded islands and smaller areas. They can not only give us diseases directly, such as respiratory diseases, they can also facilitate the spread of other existing diseases. Nuclear power is the complete opposite of this. According to Masuda, May 2020, tropical fishes vanished after the operation of a nuclear power plant in Japan was suspended. Now, this is explaining how one nuclear power plant was operating off the coast of Japan. And because of the thermal venting from this nuclear power plant, it supported an endangered fish and coral population that otherwise wouldn't have been there. This just goes to show how nuclear power plant can actually be beneficial to local ecosystems without having any negative impacts. Now that I have informed you about the problem, let us talk about the cause. Clearly, the main cause of why nuclear power plants are shutting down, it's simply because they can't afford to stay open. According to congressional documents and publications, November 13th, 2019, most of these facilities are closing down due to economic reasons. Now, the two main factors that these plants are facing economic reasons is because of very high competition from fossil fuels, such as natural gas, and a very large amount of that lack of funding. Nuclear power plants aren't receiving the money they need to stay open, and people choose to buy cheaper sources of energy from dirty fossil fuels, not caring that they can buy slightly more expensive energy from clean fuels such as nuclear. Another problem that has been very prominent in nuclear power plants is that, according to the Wall Street Journal, November 20th, 2019, critics point to the cost overruns and poor management in some plants. Now, this is the secondary problem with nuclear power plants. They're simply not being run properly. They're spending way too much money on stuff they don't necessarily need, and they're not being taken care of properly. This causes premature wear and tear in the plants, and they shortens their lifespan, and they're closed sooner than they otherwise would have been. We have now seen the reasons behind the issue. Let us move on to a solution to this problem. Clearly, the main things we can do to save nuclear power is to fund new nuclear power plants and to completely phase out fossil fuels. According to Targeted News Service, June 25th, 2019, nuclear currently contributes 40% of our annual clean electricity, but demand is expected to quadruple from the replacement of fossil fuels and the boom in the electric vehicle and heating sectors. Now, this article is explaining how, if the plan to completely phase out fossil fuels goes into place, nuclear power would quadruple its production of electricity, and that would take it into the mainstream and the main power source we currently have. And it would also increase the amount we get of electricity from other cleaner power sources, such as solar and wind. And there are other proposals that are being made in order to save nuclear power, which one of the ones that it's brought up to the forefront is to, instead of making very large nuclear power plants around concentrated population areas, is to make smaller, more widespread nuclear power plants in small areas. According to the Nuclear Power Plant Journal, February 2019, a radical shift to a world in which efficiency of size is replaced by efficiency of numbers, in which custom-built technology of massive unit scale is replaced by massive numbers of small, modular, mass-produced units deployed in parallel and single locations or distributed geographically. Now, this is explaining how simply by mass-producing very small nuclear reactors, it would make nuclear energy more accessible to a larger number of people, because they don't have to be concentrated on large population areas. These small reactors could be more widespread all over the country, and more people could use this energy. Clearly, there are some viable solutions to solve this problem. Today, I'll share with you the problems, causes, and solutions associated with not using nuclear power. If you have ever been scared of nuclear energy, don't be, because with the development of nuclear fusion, this is clearly the energy of the future.